Hello, and thank you for joining me on this webinar. I am Chrissy Cortina. I'm a Senior Program Officer in the Division of Public Programs at NEH. I'm joined today by my colleague, Kathy Mulvaney, who is also a Program Officer. I want to give a little bit of an agenda. We're going to talk about the NEH generally as an overview, then the Division of Public Programs, the kinds of grants that we fund, and then, of course, devote the majority of our time to public humanities projects grants. Finally, we'll talk about our review process and timeline, and also offer you some suggestions, tips for how to create the most competitive application. Finally, I wanted to say that you should feel free to contact us. As program officers, we are here to answer questions, to advise and help you create a strong NEH application. The NEH, the National Endowment for the Humanities, is a federal agency. We were founded in 1965 to support all areas of the humanities through project-based grants and fellowships using merit-based peer review. We'll talk a little bit more about that peer review towards the end of this presentation. Our current chair is Shelley C. Lowe. She's a member of the Navajo Nation. We currently have two ongoing initiatives that were created by the chair. These are specific encouragements for types of projects. You still have to present a good, strong application, but we encourage projects that leverage the humanities to strengthen democracy, advance equity, and address the changing climate. There are new funding opportunities across the agency, and so I strongly encourage you to do a little bit of a search and to do some reading to look at these many opportunities. A second initiative, it's actually a part of American Tapestry, encourage humanities projects that help further the understanding of the nation's racial, ethnic, gender, and religious diversity. Examine the sources of hate and intolerance in the US, and explore greater inclusiveness. So, what are the humanities? This is an excellent question, and one that we get a lot. Our founding mission, that the founding legislation actually that sets up our mission, defines humanities as disciplines that reflect on the meanings of the heritage, traditions, history, and culture of human beings. That is, they explore and help people to contextualize big questions, big social, historical, cultural questions. Our mission is primarily educational. We'll talk more about that. But things that we don't fund the creation of art. That's actually the purview of our sister agency, the National Endowment for the Arts. We also don't support humanitarian work, which is quite different from humanities. The NEH has 7 divisions, and each of those divisions fund slightly different projects and also have specific agendas or requirements. I will point out the Office of Federal and State Partnerships. That is actually a division of NEH that oversees the work of the state councils, the state humanities councils. There's one in every state and territory that make up the United States. And we often encourage people, and perhaps a first step could be to explore the resources and grant opportunities that are offered at your state level. We also have the Division of Education programs. They primarily support K through 12 education and teaching. The Office of Challenge Grants, which offers matching grants. Division of Preservation and Access. The Office of Digital Humanities. The Division of Research Programs. And finally, the Division of Public Programs. So the Division of Public Programs supports projects that bring analytical interpretation of humanities ideas to broad, diverse public audiences. Another way of thinking about it, the way that I think about it actually, is that all of our projects really need to bridge the gap between humanities scholarship, say history or philosophy or literature, and general audiences, people who are not affiliated with the Academy. We offer 4 major grant lines in the Division of Public Programs. Digital projects for the public, which supports websites, mobile games, apps, interactive kiosks, media projects, which supports documentary film, single or series, radio, and podcasts. Our newest grant line is specifically targeted to smaller organizations, and it's public impact project at smaller organizations. It supports a range of activities, including program evaluation, professional development, and the creation and implementation of interpretive projects like exhibits or podcasts. The one requirement for those grants, we define small organizations as organizations that have an operating budget of $1 million or less and have 50 or fewer employees. Finally, and the topic that we will devote most of our time with today is the public humanities projects. So when you apply for one of the public humanities projects, you will need to specify if you are applying for historic place interpretation, humanities discussions, or museum exhibitions. And I'll speak in more depth about each of those. But first, who can apply? So all of the grants that are made through the Division of Public Programs must go to U.S. nonprofits. So that's organizations with 501(c) tax exempt status, public and accredited institutions of higher education, state and local governments, and federally recognized Native American tribal governments. We do not, and we're prohibited from giving awards to individuals, foreign organizations, or for-profit entities. So all Division of Public Programs projects have some commonalities. They must be grounded in humanities scholarship. They must deepen the public's understanding of significant humanities questions. They must involve collaboration with humanities scholars, attract a wide audience or target audiences underserved by humanities programs, and encourage dialogue and exchange of ideas. And I want to point out, in addition to collaboration with humanities scholars, that would be the sort of educational piece I was talking about. I also wanted to talk a little bit about audience. We care a lot in public programs about audience. You can attract, like I said, a wide audience, or you could target a specific audience, for example, senior citizens or incarcerated youth. Public humanities projects are primarily in-person experiences. Exhibitions, historic places, and humanities discussions. Some humanities discussions can be virtual. However, the majority of activities should be in person. Let me talk about exhibitions. We fund permanent exhibitions, which we define as exhibitions that are designed to be open to the public for up to 3 years. Traveling exhibitions, which are exhibitions that travel to at least 2 US venues. So that does include the host venue. So your museum and one other site would qualify you for a traveling exhibition, or temporary single site. And we define temporary single site as exhibitions that are going to be open to the public for at least 3 months. We do not fund, if you have a traveling exhibition, it can travel to non-US venues, but our grant funds cannot be used to support those travel costs. Permanent and traveling exhibitions have funding levels at planning for up to $60,000 and implementation, which are $50,000 to $400,000. I'll talk more about the differences in these levels in a few minutes. Temporary exhibitions, so I'm sorry, at least 2 months. Planning awards are up to $60,000 and implementation awards are up to $100,000. The next activity that this grant line supports are historic places. And those are long-term programs at historic sites, neighborhoods, trails, districts, many different types of location-based programming. This may take the form of living history, walking tours, exhibitions, or public programs. The funding here is planning awards up to $60,000 and implementation up to $400,000. Finally, humanities discussions. And if you have looked at our humanities discussions projects previously, I will say that there are some changes to the humanities discussions funding levels. So these are our current funding levels. So humanities discussions are only offered at the implementation level. And we define them as a series of in-person, virtual, or hybrid public programs held over a period of 3 months to 2 years. And you can define the grant period. We have 2 levels now. This is the new part. Small humanities discussions are projects that have a minimum of 15 public programs. Often they're local or regional in scope, and they have a maximum award of $100,000. Large humanities discussions have a minimum of 50 public programs in 20 states. They're multi-format with national audiences, and they're they have a maximum award of $400,000. So what funding level is right for you? That can often be a difficult question. If you're working on an exhibit or historic site interpretation, have articulated some big humanities themes, have identified scholars and consultants who are committed to the project, and can describe approaches and techniques that will effectively convey your terms, then you're ready for a planning grant. Oftentimes, of course, people want to apply for implementation, but the standards for our planning grant are fairly high. You really need to have a good team of advisors and consultants and have some big humanities themes that the project will explore. Planning grants may be used to plan exhibition or historic site interpretation, refine content, format, or interpretive techniques, consult with scholars and designers, establish diverse partnerships, or prototype components. And finally, develop preliminary designs, draft scripts, or interpretive plans for your institution. If you are in the final stages of planning, you've collaborated already with scholars and are continuing consultation with them. You've clearly defined the project themes. Another way to think of project themes are the audience takeaways, and you've fully developed the content. Additionally, you have documents illustrating the project format, like an exhibit design, tour scripts, or facilitator training materials. Then you're ready for an implementation grant. You do not need to have received a planning grant to receive or be competitive for an implementation grant. Implementation grants may be used to produce exhibitions, historic place projects, or humanities discussions, continue meeting with scholars, fabricate exhibitions, produce educational materials, catalogs, websites, and other resources, provide project-specific staff training, and advertise and market the project. Finally, also conduct impact evaluation. Additionally, we offer positions in public humanities. These are only open to exhibitions and historic places at the implementation level. A position in public humanities is to hire a recent graduate, someone within the last 5 years of an MA or PhD program in humanities or museum studies. They may be hired for 1 or 2 years full time. It must be a new hire identified by a national search, and we will give you up to $50,000 a year towards salary. Your institution pays for the benefits. The job duties must be entry level and include responsibility for public engagement. So these are kind of like paid internships where we help you with some of that, the salary cost. You are free to pay a salary of more than $50,000, but the NEH will only provide $50,000 per year. In addition, we have Chair's Special Awards. These are an additional supplement for implementation awards only. They're very, very rare. They're offered or provided for ambitious projects of exceptional significance and impact. So projects must reach exceptionally large national audiences. A lot of times they include many partners across the country, diverse formats, in-person programming, exhibitions, perhaps web materials, so multiple diverse formats. And those awards are up to $1 million. They are a special request. And so when you apply, you'll see there is a section in your narrative where you can make the case for why the project warrants the chair's special award. So our review criteria. Our review criteria, the first and I would say most significant aspect that we ask our reviewers to comment upon is the intellectual content and humanities significance. We also ask about format and program resources, audience, project team and advisors, and project feasibility. So in short, we want to make sure that all of our projects are grounded in sound humanities content, that they're well thought out, that they reach an audience, and they have good advisors and project teams in place. Upcoming PHP application deadlines. So right now I'm recording this in early summer of 2024, and the next deadline is August 14th, 2024. We also, as program officers, we can review an optional draft before the deadline. So that's not a part of the formal application process. It's not required, but if you wish, you can send us a draft of your application no later than July 10th, 2024, if you're applying for the August deadline. We also have a deadline January 8th, 2025. And the deadline for an optional draft is December 4th, 2024. You submit these optional drafts to public programs, public PGMS at NEH.gov. Some things to know before you apply. To be able to apply, you have to create or access a login.gov account. Acquire a unique entity identifier to use sam.gov, and you must register or renew with sam.gov, and you must register or renew a grants.gov account. So, and you need a login.gov account required for all of this. Now, I will say we've got the websites for those different organizations here. And I would stress that grants.gov, which is the major portal for all federal grant-making agencies, is a separate entity. So if you have any problems, they have their own helpline. Our best advice is that you really start to set up all of these registrations as early as possible, because it can take several weeks for all the registrations to come through. Our main NEH website, I imagine you all have seen this, is NEH.gov. But as I mentioned, from this main website, you can access all of our different grant lines. Probably the easiest way to do that is to go to specific divisions. Tips for creating a competitive proposal. Okay, this is the one that the thing that everyone always wants to know about. Fortunately, as program officers, we can be helpful, I think. So competitive proposals are written for broad audiences. So you can't assume that the reviewers will have prior knowledge. Our reviewers do come from the world of humanities, but that could be um, that could be college professors or museum curators or really any number of people who run public discussions. So you can't use a lot of jargon. Um, this can be, I think, difficult, but try to write your application. You need to incorporate humanities scholarship, but again, your application needs to be understood by a variety of humanities professionals. You should explain why the project is important and provide context. Demonstrate how scholarship is incorporated into the project. Demonstrate how you collaborate with scholars and partner institutions, and provide evidence that it will reach an audience. This includes audience numbers. We request if the numbers of people who attend your public programs or your exhibits or come to your historic site. Competitive applications also follow directions. That means you follow the subheads that we provide in the notice of funding opportunities. That makes information easy to find, and that's important for our reviewers to do a thorough review of your project. They comply with page limits and other requirements and take careful note of new requirements in the funding opportunities uh, document, budget instructions, and provide subrecipient budgets if a significant portion of your award will be going to a third party. Again, additional advice is to contact a program officer. We're actually mostly pretty interesting people, I think, and we enjoy hearing about your projects. We enjoy answering questions about grant programs. Maybe you're really trying to decide between grant programs or determine what level you think you'll be most competitive at. So we offer a lot of advice. We also provide feedback on draft proposals. So again, our deadlines, August 14th is the next 2024 deadline. Draft deadline is July 10th. After that, January 8th, 2025, with the draft deadline being December 4th, 2024. Now, there is one caveat to the drafts. So you can't submit multiple drafts. Um, for example, if I review your draft and I give you comments and maybe we have a meeting, you can't then a week later ask me to review a second draft or reach out to another program officer and ask them to read a different draft. So we have a limited number of program officers, and so we really have to use our resources wisely. Okay, the review process. So what happens is that our division staff, while we hold review panels, we receive written and verbal comments from the outside peer reviewers. Then division staff makes recommendations. Then the National Council on the Humanities, they are 26 presidentially appointed professionals from across the country and across the fields of the humanities. They meet 3 times a year in Washington, D.C., and they do a review of our funding recommendations. And then final funding decisions are made by the chair. So the application review timeline. There's no way around it. Peer review takes time. So if you apply to the August 14th deadline, your application will be under review from August 2024 to March. It will be reviewed, our recommendations at the March 2025 meeting of the National Council. The chair will make final decisions in late March, and you will be notified of the funding decision in April of 2025. Your grant period then would begin on May 1st, 2025. Although I will say there can be some flexibility, especially if there's been perhaps change of personnel or there's a delay in getting you paperwork. But that's kind of the ballpark beginning of the grant period. Similarly, if you apply January 8th, 2025, your application will be under review from January to July. Our funding recommendations will be reviewed at the July 2025 meeting of the National Council. You'll receive notification of the decisions in August 2025, and your grant period will begin around September 1st, 2025. Some final reminders. Make sure your organization is eligible to apply. Obtain your UEI, sam.gov, and login.gov accounts as soon as possible. Begin that process, we say now, as soon as you're thinking about applying to us, because that can take time. Ensure that if you or your organization has received any prior NEH grants, that they've had timely reporting. There are no outstanding reports. Check out samples of successful application narratives and resources on our website. And again, contact a program officer. You can reach out to us individually. We have a list of program officers available online, but then we also have a general mailbox, and that's for questions. Those will, if the email is more complicated, those will be automatically routed to an individual program officer. So thank you so much. I hope this information was helpful, and I very much look forward to hearing about your projects. Many things.